Welcome to Give Yourself Grace. I'm your host, Grace Perry, and I am so thrilled you're here. As a content creator and coach, I've built a six-figure business to help women step into their power and share their stories with the world. My mission is to empower you to embrace your unique journey and every season this life has to offer. If you crave entertainment, guidance, and tools to transform your reality, you have come to the right place. So come with me on this adventure and truly give yourself the grace that you deserve. Let's dive into the show. Welcome back to Give Yourself Grace, and welcome to today's episode where we are diving into one of the greatest human superpowers, resilience. Now, in my last episode, I talked about the book, The 5 Graces of Life and Leadership by Gary Burnison. This was a book that I picked up during my travels, and it breaks down the meaning behind my name, Grace, each letter standing for a powerful human trait. Now, G stands for gratitude, which is what we talked about in the last episode. R for resilience, which we're going to talk about today. A for aspiration, C for courage, and E for empathy. Now, I want to start with a simple definition of what resilience is. Now, according to Google, it is the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties, aka toughness. It's about elasticity, the ability to spring back after being stretched or challenged. But resilience is so much more than just bouncing back. It's the strength within each of us to keep moving forward, learning and growing through every challenge we face. So how do you define resilience? And where in your life have you shown it? Resilience is at the heart of giving ourselves grace. It's something we all have to tap into during our really tough times to ultimately give ourselves kindness, compassion, and love. Now, I want to share a story with you, and hopefully you can relate to this. It is about my COVID-19 pandemic story. And when I think back to the early days of COVID-19 in 2020, I was living a very different life than I am now. I was living in Marblehead, Massachusetts, my hometown, where I was bartending and waitressing at Maddie's Sail Loft. And at the time, I was also consulting for biotech companies and growing my own business on the side. But when I really analyzed my time, I was about 80% at the restaurant and about 20% in my business. So I really wasn't focusing on growing my business. It was really just about making those tips and, being in the community of Maddie's Sail Loft, which I'll never forget that day in March of 2020 when Governor Baker banned eating at restaurants and gatherings of more than 25 people. And I just remember closing down the bar that day and leaving the restaurant feeling so anxious and just unsure of what was going to happen. And looking back on it now, it's wild because I had no idea that in that moment, it would be my last shift as a bartender and waitress ever. And it would be the last time that I'd leave Maddie's as an employee, a place that I had loved to work for years. And so shortly thereafter, I found myself in lockdown with my roommates, and I was buying overpriced toilet paper on Amazon. And I still think about this because I literally just panic bought $25 worth of toilet paper. Now, there are only 4 rolls in this $25 pack, okay? Paper literally so thin that I don't even think we ever used it because it was just so ridiculous. But that was the state of mind we were in, right? We're like, oh my gosh, we need toilet paper. We need all of the essentials. And we're running to the grocery store, making sure that we're stockpiling on food and supplies. And it felt like doomsday, right? And I want to also take a moment to recognize my immense privilege during this time. During the pandemic, I was living in the suburbs of Massachusetts, and my COVID experience may have looked very different than yours. And I really want to be sensitive to how you may have experienced it and just recognize my privilege during this time. I was living with my two roommates, Greg and Christopher, and Greg's dog, Loki. And like so many, we were preparing for the unknown, right? So we had stockpiled up on the essentials, which included red wine, canned food, and I even bought an emergency survival book that I still keep to this day, which is just so funny. And we spent our days just glued to the news, right? We were watching conspiracy documentaries and even experimenting with psychedelic mushrooms for the very first time. And this was kind of like an awakening for me. And we used to joke that, these mushrooms would protect us from COVID-19. And that was really very surreal looking back on it. Not only was I trying psychedelics for the first time, I was also just in lockdown, figuring out my life and reflecting on just this sort of state of emergency, right? It was very scary, but also looking back, very comical. And sort of during that endless COVID year, the summer came and my roommate Greg and I were sort of overflowing with extra time on our hands. I had decided not to go back to the restaurant industry. I started to kind of play with this idea that I was going to do Grace Perry Productions full time, but I still had these consulting opportunities that were fully remote. I was very lucky to continue those during COVID. But I was also very lucky to live in a small town where a lot of my childhood friends returned back during this difficult time. And we were sort of all reunited and able to spend a lot more time together, sort of like our own little COVID pack. Now, I also recognized during this time it was like forbidden. It was like a forbidden fruit that you can't eat to hang out with these people, right? Like we were really only limited to our own individual communities. And it was really like shunned if you were hanging out with more than like 4 people. I just so happened to live with 2 other people and then my boyfriend Colby and all of our friends. So we had a little kind of tight pack of friends that we would hang out with. It was a very interesting time. And so as entrepreneurs, me with my business, Grace Perry Productions, and I, a new entrepreneur, because I'm really diving into like what that looks like at this time. And Greg, actually with his construction business, we just naturally started brainstorming these sort of new business ideas together. And at the time, I just felt this calling, and maybe you can relate to that. I just felt this inner knowing, like an intuitive, just gut feeling that I was meant for more, and that maybe this pandemic was the sign in the universe telling me to focus on entrepreneurship and listen to that inner calling. And I think a lot of people can relate to this because COVID really was that just brutally honest period in your life where you had to stop, reflect, and essentially lock down, pun intended, what you wanted to do with your life. And there was just so much change taking place that it was overwhelming and caused a lot of anxiety and depression. And at that time, I really just started talking with Greg about all these things. And it was summertime, so it was June in the beautiful state of Massachusetts. The summers are the best, especially if you live in the East Coast, you know what I'm talking about. And Greg and I decided that we wanted to create this lifestyle brand that could not only bring people together, but also inspire people. And so that was how G Floats was born. G standing for both Grace and Greg floats. And we started with pool floats with this idea that we would eventually create custom floats for experiences, events, and brands. Now, it just goes to show how very quickly you can dive into entrepreneurship. In just a few hours, we had a name, an LLC, and this like full working business plan. Greg was researching packaging and manufacturers, and I was sketching up logos and dreaming of photo shoots, and like the energy and the vibes were high, right? It just felt like the perfect distraction from this like pandemic reality that we were living in. I just stopped my bartending job. Greg's construction company was slowed down from the pandemic, and we just literally took a chance. And after reviewing a few samples, we decided to order 1,000 floats. Yes, you heard me right. 1,000 1,000 floats. Okay. We decided on 500 white swans and 500 flamingos. Now, I know what you're thinking. What? It's crazy. It was crazy. And it was also just amazing. So after about selling 20 of these floats, reality hit. And neither of us actually wanted to sell pool floats. We did not want to get into product sales at all. In fact, we realized that we were more in love with the vision of community and fun than our actual G Floats business model. And looking back on this, I just can't help but laugh because we genuinely went all in, right? We committed ourselves to this idea, to this business, which is so much more than most people can say about their own dreams and goals. So I'm so proud of us. And looking back on this, I realize G Floats was less of a business and more of a crash course in entrepreneurship and resilience, teaching us about manufacturing, shipping, and selling on Amazon through pure, just hands-on learning. And yes, we still have 900 floats approximately in storage. And, we dream of hosting a massive float festival one day where everyone can just come together and celebrate G Floats one last time. But for now, we're both very busy in our businesses that we're kind of ignoring the fact that we have these 900 floats in storage. But anyways, I just really want to be the permission slip for you for failure and resilience. And looking back on that time, it brought so much anxiety, which I'm sure that you can relate to. And we all have that COVID story, right? A time of fear, adaptation, or even inspiration. The pandemic is a universal story of resilience. And if I asked you about your experience, I know you'd have a story to tell me where you were resilient in the face of uncertainty. And maybe you bought that $25 roll of toilet paper as well. And when we deal with challenges, we create our own resilience playbooks that are unique to each of us, right? Made up of the ways we've navigated through life's hardest moments. I can't tell you what is in your playbook. I couldn't tell you the traumas or the challenges that you faced. All I know is you've been through it. And you can tell me your story, and you can tell me times of resilience and challenges that you faced. And now for me, I know that in my own challenges, I learn so much about myself and about life. But also in the heat of those challenges, I don't feel resilient. I just keep going every day, waking up and taking one step in the right direction. Or in just any direction. It doesn't necessarily have to be right or wrong. It's just you keep going. And I just want to take a moment today to recognize your resilience. With every experience, from overcoming your trauma to maybe helping a friend through a crisis, that's an example of your strength. And we've each carried ourselves through to this present moment, and that alone is an achievement. And I just want to recognize that. You are already resilient. And so my question for you, after all that you've been through and the resilience playbook that you've created, what will you do with your resilience superpower? Now, resilience is a superpower, right? It's yours to use as you move forward in life, in entrepreneurship, in business. And if I were to ask you, genuinely just ask you face to face, what is one really scary, really big dream of yours? What would you tell me? What dream scares the absolute shit out of you? I want to know. And maybe it's not owning a pool float company. Maybe it's speaking on stages, starting a nonprofit, writing a book, growing a business to 10 million, growing your resiliency when faced with challenges. What does that dream like? What does that look like for you? And that resiliency, all of the tools that you need to cultivate that dream, I just want you to know it's already inside of you. You just got to tap into it. And when I've tapped into my resiliency and I've examined my challenges, I started to notice this direct relationship between my resiliency and my greatest fears. Your resilience and your fears are like best fucking friends, right? Like they got each other on their favorites. They're calling each other, they're talking to each other all the time. Like your resilience and your fears are totally hanging out. And I just wanted to read this passage to you because I think it really just speaks volumes to this. According to Gary, nothing builds resilience like the experience of failure. If people are afraid to fail, they miss out on the chance to grow stronger. Failure isn't about the fall, it's about how we get back up. When we allow ourselves to fail and learn, we build resilience. Remember, our resilience doesn't just lift us up, it empowers others as well. And so G-Floats may have been our failure, but it taught me so much about business and partnerships. And that knowledge I can share with you, right? Because I experienced that. I don't even look at G-Floats as a failure. I look at it as a huge success. I did not take business in college. I studied film and television production. So for me, learning business in real life in this hands-on G-Floats business venture, I learned much more than I ever could at college, honestly. And it's a perfect example of how failures are essential when you're trying to become successful. In fact, many self-made, I would say not just many, all self-made millionaires to billionaires with a B have admitted to failure as a necessary step to create their success. It's how they learn, right? Think of the times that you have maybe failed in a relationship or a business and it taught you a lot, right? Or just in work in general, you learned a lot. And so I want to share another kind of story with you today. In August, I attended the Powerhouse Women's Conference where Jamie Kern Lima, the founder of It Cosmetics, shared her story. So the Powerhouse Women's Conference is led by Lindsay Schwartz every year and the Powerhouse Women community. It is an event I highly recommend. I'm going to put it in the show notes for you to see and check out. I plan on being there for as long as I can go. It's kind of like our New Year's Eve. It's so amazing. And I just got so much out of it this year that I really want to keep coming back. And Jamie Kern Lima, if you haven't gotten into her world yet, I highly recommend that you do. I'm reading her book, Worthy, and I follow her on social media. So I highly recommend checking her out online. She is just such an empowering and motivational voice as a self-made billionaire. Yes, billionaire, billion with a B. It's crazy. Like being at the Powerhouse Women's Conference, I could not believe that I was in the same room as her. Like it was just so amazing. Now, she started her company in her living room and grew it to the largest makeup brand in the US. Eventually, she sold it to L'Oreal in $1 billion deal. Now, her authenticity and belief in her dreams are what ultimately landed her on Forbes' America's Richest Self-Made Women's list. Now, Jamie has experienced many setbacks and over 10 years of rejection. So when it came to her cosmetics line, It Cosmetics, she really had to have incredible resilience. And she's just the perfect example of a billionaire who has given herself grace throughout her journey of success. And so I want to leave you with this today as you think more about your resilience and the tools that you already have within you. On stage at the Powerhouse Women's Conference, Jamie asked us, she said, "What will you do with the power that is you?" And I'm going to say that again, okay? Mic drop. What will you do with the power that is you? Chills, literally chills all over my body, because ultimately, she also reminded us that you don't need to wait for anyone else to bet on your dreams. Setbacks are setups for what we're called to do. And rejection is God's protection. Now, whether or not you're religious or you believe in the universe, like Buddha, whatever it is, right? You can easily take out God and just say rejection is protection. And rejection is ultimately leading you down a new path, a new chapter, a new reality that you are meant to see in this lifetime. Those were all big takeaways that Jamie said on stage that I just had to share because they're just so incredible. And I think they just allow you to sit with this idea of resilience and ask yourself, what are those big, scary dreams? And just a reminder that you have what it takes and you already have examples in your life, no matter how big or no matter how small, of your resiliency. And I hope today's episode just serves as a reminder of the power that you already have to embrace this resilience, embrace that failure, nurture it, and let it carry you forward into every aspect of your life. I'm sending you so much love. Thank you for listening, and see you on the next episode. Thank you so much for listening. Your support means everything to me. If you found this episode inspiring, please share it on your social media and tag me. I'd love to thank you personally. And as always, sending you love and rooting for you. See you in the next episode.